Right, well, welcome to everybody, and to those people on Zoom that I never got time to say hello to before it all went horribly wrong. Good evening to everybody, YouTube and Zoom. So my problem was that I opened the program up again. I'd got everything ready, and the Photoshop program had crashed. So anyway, we're with you now, so you can all see the Photoshop screen there. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, and I'm going to go to my list. As you all know, tonight is a bit of a Q&A. Didn't get many questions, but the questions that I have got do relate to some good valid points, which you'll all hopefully be able to join into, etc., or they'll be helpful to you. So the office here, which is, as some of you know, in my back garden, which is like a summer house that's converted into an office, was very cold. But during that little session there, I'm quite warm now. So we've gone up, the temperature's gone up about 10. Right, off we go then. So to start with, Caroline Oldham came up with a question. No questions pointless, Caroline. So, but she's put might be pointless and just me, but I don't understand stacking and how that's done. It gets mentioned a lot. Well, there's lots of different thoughts upon what stacking is. Stacking can be stacking for making images sharper, stacking for noise reduction. Some people call it layering. So it uses lots of different things. But what I'm going to show you is some different bits about stacking and layering all in the one session, because then
I'm not seeing it.
Oh, my.
Oh, right. It's not just me then.
you won't see it yet, because
right.
if you're just patient for a minute until such a time as I get it sharing the right screen, etc.
Right, okay.
So
Okay.
it's all right. I've got two. Why have I got two screens to share? We'll go for that one and hope that we're on the right one. So there's where we are at the moment. And as I say, on Zoom, if you could not speak, please, unless it's a question or something. Otherwise, it goes straight through to YouTube. So if you want to mute yourself and then unmute yourself as and when you want to talk, if the person on Zoom whose question it is, in this case Caroline O, if you want to stay live and ask any questions that you want as we go along, that's totally up to you. So what I'm going to do in the first instance is hope that the machinery works, is to bring in a couple of images so that we can play with these two when I get the two sorted. So layering, stacking, etc. Now you won't see on Zoom the first bit when it's opening up in Camera Raw. I'm not going to do any work in Camera Raw anyway. Those on YouTube will see it, but it doesn't come up on Zoom. So let me just put both the pictures into Photoshop, and we can just show you a first one working with layers. Now the colours on the screen that I'm using don't look particularly good because it hasn't been calibrated, the one on the right. I always do my Photoshop work on a specific screen. But we've got two images here. We've got a robin and a cow in a field. And the reason for these two is to work with layers and to be able to bring and merge in one way or another the two images. Now with Photoshop, the first thing that any of you need to do when you've got Photoshop, and I'm showing you this in Photoshop because one, I haven't got Affinity, two, my version of Elements is the 2020 version, and I'm not sure that many people have got that, and you can't do lots of things that the questions have been asked this evening, such like as layers and stacking and all this sort of thing, in the other programs. You can in Affinity, of which I'm just trying to get that sorted, but I haven't got it tonight. So right, if the first thing you want to do is go to your edit button, go down to your preferences, and then go through your preferences and make sure that you have floating images, so that you can do that. You can drag one out and you can put it back in. If you can't drag it out, you need to get in touch and I'll tell you how to do it. Save me going through all of that this evening. So we've got a couple of images here. Now if we just we can drag them both out and we can make them side by side. If you put it back in, I can dock it again when it goes back in. Okay, don't. There we go. If I make it smaller to start with and then drag it out, it leaves them at the right size, so I can have two virtually side by side. Let's just work on the left hand image for a start. Whichever one you click is the live image. So in the first instance, all I'm going to do is to just do a very quick bit of cropping. That'll do. Just double click it. That's got that one right. Now on this particular image, for those, somebody's got the volume on that keeps kicking the table or something, so if you could just, oh, it's you, Viv, so if you could just take it off. So what we need to do is make a selection of this one. Now the quickest way in the modern Photoshop is just to get this object selection tool, and all you need to do is drag it around the whole subject, let go, and hope the computer doesn't crash, and that's selected the image. I'm not going to on this occasion because we're only showing you very quickly, but if you wanted to, you could then make a bit of a selection of its feet that it hasn't picked up, etc. Take that bit there underneath its tail away, etc, etc. But that's a very quick way as a starting point to select something. Now that's made that a separate layer, so you can do one of two things now, and you always move over to your move tool for a start. You can either drag that and drop it into this picture, or you can go to layer and then layer, new, layer by copy. And if you do that, it'll make you a copy. It's disappeared now, the marching ants, and we've got a copy here. So all we do is drag it across, and everybody panics because they can't think how the hell I'm going to get that to fit in with this picture. I'll dock it up there so it's bigger again for you. Have you ever seen a robin that big against a cow? No. So all you do now, that is a separate selection. So you're now beginning to work with layers. So, and I don't profess to know a tremendous amount about Photoshop, but I don't think any of us do. It's just the bits that we know. Some of you may have a different way of doing the same things, but for this evening, just bear with me. So, whichever layer you want to work on, you're now working in layers, and you have to make sure that it's grey. If I choose the background layer, which is the cow, then I would be working on that. If I choose the robin, I would be on this layer. So now to make that size correct, all I'm going to do is go up into the Edit tab, down to Transform, down to Scale. Now if you press, you've still got your sound on, Viv. If you press the Alt key and grab hold of the corner and push it down, that will rescale it to a size which is acceptable for the job in hand. So if we wanted, for instance, to put this robin on this pile of dirt here in front of the cow just to make it look something realistic, we can sit him down there. And then you have to think about the proportion of size between the two. Just jumping back one step, the reason I said press Alt is because if you don't press Alt when you're resizing, you'll get a very squashy bird sometimes. So if we now just grab the corner and probably make it just a little bit smaller, reposition him in onto there, and that would be it. I'm just going to move it so that you can see something different. If you wanted it on a branch, you could sit it on a branch, and there you've got your selection. You've been working with layers whilst you've been doing all of this. Now you've got two options here. You can just double click inside where the robin is, or you can just go up to the top and click the tick mark, and that's it done. So now we've got two layers, one on top of the other. We've closed down the robin layer, which was this one here. I've just minimized that for the moment whilst we're working. And so that would be, if you was happy, the end of your job. Now if we zoom into this, you can see it doesn't look too bad. Granted, we haven't got the feet on because I haven't spent that time getting the feet into place. Whilst you're on this particular layer, you could go and do other things, or on any layer you can do other things by double clicking on this grey area here, not in the where it says layer 1 or background, but on the grey area. And once you double click there, another box comes up and you can put shadows on it. So if you wanted a drop shadow behind the bird, etc., you can do some different things here. Now when I say drop shadow, it's a drop shadow off the bird, not a shadow. So I know that sounds strange, but these are just things that you can do on the outside. We'll look at those later. So that's how you can work with a couple of layers in a simple format. So we've transferred one part of an image onto another, and we've been working with two layers. Once you've finished, just go to layer, flatten image, and that would make the two solid. So now that I've clicked that button, you have a solid image, and both are locked together. So whatever happens to them, they're on a background layer. You can't do anything separately to them. If at this stage you've made a mistake, all you need to do is go to history, go back to free transform, and that would unflatten them, and you could work away again. So at this particular stage, and if you've got any questions on YouTube, just drop them in the comments. And if anybody on Zoom has a question, just unmute yourself and ask. I'll just get rid of these. Robin, it can go. No questions, so I'll get rid of this one as well and move on to the second one. So I haven't got any images for you, Caroline, for the actual stacking session, but what you would have, you would add 2 or 3 images, and the way you would open the images to stack is to go to File, and I'm doing the next one now, then down to Scripts. Now the reason that you don't open them normally is that when you stack images, you have to open them as layers which are shelved at the right hand side in the layers palette. They have to be opened in as layers, not as separate images. So just to go back to reiterate that one, before, if you remember, I had one image open up there and one image open up here. You don't have that when you're stacking images. You have to have them load files into a stack. So we load files into a stack. Now that's opened up on my other screen, so I'm just going to do that a little bit. All I'm doing now is just finding the 3 images, and then I say OK. Now at this particular point, and I'll just show the YouTube members, at this point I could ask it to attempt to automatically align the source images, and that would align the images as best the computer could, the program could, and it would align, say, if you'd got 3 or 4 buildings, pictures of the same building, it would try to align them. Or if you'd got how can I put it, if you'd got a landscape and you was doing a panorama, then after clicking this it would give you another option to choose panorama or stacking. So in this case all I want to do is to open the 3 images. So I'll just say open, give it a second or two to open 3 images, which it does take quite a bit, because what it's doing, it's making a layer, showing a layer, and creating them all and putting them side by side. So as you can see now, we've got 3 layers down the right hand side. Notice that I'm now talking about layers rather than images. If they were separate images, I would have 3 images along the top here, but these are image layers. So firstly, what you have to decide now is whether you want to do anything to the images before you actually start to stack them together, layer them together, or whatever you want to call it. So in this particular case, I had 3 images, and these 3 images were 3 that I light painted separately. So I'll just shut that one off. There's another one, and there's the roof. So consequently, I'm just going to show you another little tip. If you have layers open, if you go to the top one, left click and just shoot straight down, it opens them all up again. So that saves you going click, click, click. You can go all open or go the other way, all off. Just a little tip. Once you've got the images opened, whichever one again is grey is the one that you're working on. Now you only see the top layer. This is the top layer. This is that image. But if I wanted to see this image, I have to click off those 2 images. Okay, so that's them all on, and it will always show me the top layer. So if I switch the top layer off, the middle layer becomes the top layer, even though the bottom layer is live. Whew. Hope you're all following this. I'm asking questions later. So now if I switch the middle layer off, the bottom layer is showing, because that's the only one that's now live. I could make that one up there the layer that's live, but it's only showing this layer because this eye is the one that switches it on and off. And this is very, very similar to Affinity and many other a few other programs. And the reason I'm doing this on Photoshop tonight is because there's not many programs that can work with layers as good as Photoshop and as easy as Photoshop. So what do we want to do to the images? We've got a bit of a problem here, and basically that's my light, and that's where I was stood here at the time when I was light painting that area. So although it seems fairly close, it was quite a chunk across yon side. So I've got this mark to get rid of. So basically, firstly, we would find out by closing the other ones which one of these layers is the one with the problem. So if I switch that one back on and that one, I now know that the top one is the problem layer. Okay. So I'm going to do two things here. One, let me tell you just what I would do with that to whoops, wrong way round. You've got to have black on top on the left hand side here. You must have black on top. And then we go and find the eraser tool. No, we don't. Sorry, I do apologise. We get the brush tool. And once we've got the brush tool, we just paint that out. In fact, that's not gone quite how I wanted it to, but never mind. That should have gone down to the core. I'll just get rid of that bit as well. So now the layer underneath it is showing. That's not going to work for the simple reason it's not gone down to the core. Oh, it's because I just said to you the black wants to be on top. So why is that not doing it? Why does it always work perfectly fine this afternoon and doesn't work at all now? Let me just try this. I don't think this will work because it's showing on top, so it shouldn't. It should have done something totally different than that. Oh, I know why, I think. Let me just switch them two off. Let me do what I said for a start. Make that brush smaller. Here we go. I've done it wrong there, folks, so sorry about that. I know why I did it wrong, because I haven't created a layer mask, but we'll get to that in a minute. So we've got rid of that mark, but now you think, well, hell, that's made hell of a mess. But of course, when I switch the other layers back on, it's okay. Don't worry about the mark at the moment, because I should have done it a different way, which I'll show you in a second. So we now have to think about the sky. If I was to blend these three together, which is what I want to do to get the light right, I go up to the blending modes, and I think somebody asked a question about blending modes. We go down to the lighten mode, and as you can see now, we've got a good image. That mark has gone, etc., etc. We've got no problems with the blending mode. So as long as you've got lighten, it's now brought in all three images, overlaid them on top of each other, and I've got the light from all three images. So I'm just going to switch two off again. What we're going to do is we're going to choose the layer we want to work on. We're going to get a layer mask. The white bit is the layer mask. Make sure that that's selected, and then we get the brush. I'm going to make it bigger because I'm going to be very cruel. I'm going to get a hard brush, and I'm just going to swipe out all of the sky. Why am I doing this? Because if I use three images, I'm going to have... Oh, I nearly took the corner of the building off there. If I did... I think I have taken the corner of the building off there, but never mind. Doesn't matter. Not for this exercise. You would make sure, and you would do this carefully, of course, as close you can to the building to get rid of all of the stars. There's one little star there, because they will show, if not, as star trails. We don't want star trails. We want nice, sharp stars. So we've got a layer mask with this all removed now, all of the sky, because I only want one sky to be left. So I now hover over my layer mask, press Alt, and drag it down to the bottom one. Now that layer mask, if I switch that one off and that one on, the same layer mask is here. A bit there from where I did it before that it hasn't done. So all I've got to do is to make that the live layer. Whoops. Go to my erase tool, wherever that is. It's here somewhere. Here, there we go. just get rid of that bit, and that's it gone. So if I now light all three up again, we've now got spot stars instead of light trails, because I'm only using one sky off all of the images. Basically, as long as you were happy with that image originally, you don't make any changes at this stage. So we've been working with 3 layers. We've used layer masks, and layer masks are a way of erasing something out of one layer, because don't forget, these are layers even though they're separate images. We only have one image showing on the screen. So now once we've got all of these 3 sorted out, I've got the image correct, I'm happy with that. I wouldn't be happy with it because I know that I would need to be better round hit this corner, but it's as good as it's going to get tonight. We go to layer, we go all the way to the bottom, flatten image, and now you can see it's all I've got is a background layer to the right hand side here. So once we've got a background layer, we have one image. So when I do something to it, it all moves as one. Now, and I don't know how many of you work with your settings on Photoshop set to open in RAW, but now that we're into a position where we can go to this image and we can just change things gently again, just as we want to. So if we go to filter, camera raw filter, we can open the image up again in camera raw. I'm just going to ask Jill Guest, because I can see your face under all of my screens that I've got open. Can you see the raw showing?
Yeah.
Yeah, good, that's all right. So now we've got all of our normal settings that we see when we open an image normally on the left hand side here. All of your settings are up this side, what you want to do. At the moment we're just on the basic edit palette, which I don't want to do anything to the image other than, let me just go to basic, other than I'll add a little bit of texture, because that brings the texture out in the stone. I'm going to add a little bit of dehaze because that just bumps it as well. And clarity, I just take down just a fraction, because that helps to get rid of some of the noise. Then we need to scroll down, and I have these set so that they're what they call solo mode. So as soon as I click one, I'm going to go to detail now, the other one closes down. So all you do to get that is right click on any line and just click single panel mode. So once you click one, another one will close. And if you click the same one, it closes accordingly. Sharpening, just about a third of the way up, usually anywhere around 40. Noise reduction, somewhere around halfway. Color noise reduction, about a third of the way up. Now what I'm just going to do is I'm going to put this to 100%. Where's 100%? There we go. So whoops, I want to just show you this noise in the sky. And now you can see why you have to be careful around the building when you take that mark out. You can, take the sky out. You can see the mark there, and you can see I've got 3 stars of the same star. And that's why you get rid of them, so that you don't get trailing. Otherwise you would have 3 all over the picture. So you've got to be careful when you go round the edge. So going back to this noise reduction, if you watch the area up in the top here, as I pull these 2 back, even though this is taken on the Canon 1DX, you can see the noise in the sky. But when I do the noise reduction, roughly about 50% with that, and about 30 or 40 with that, somewhere around there, the noise goes. or it doesn't go, it gets much more acceptable. So let me just put it back to fit to view. So now we've got our image finished, we would go down to optics, and you can change a bit of distortion here if you wish. I personally changed the distortion in geometry. Now what you can do with this one is, if you just watch the building, one click and it does attempt to straighten it up. Now unfortunately, as clever as Photoshop is, it can never get it right. Now on some buildings it will work, but this one is a fairly distorted building, and because I've taken it at an angle, it's unsure what it's trying to straighten. So the best way in this particular case is to change the verticals and horizontals, and you will get this corner straight up. And if you get this corner straight up, this one will also go straight. Now as soon as I touch this and start to move it, I get a grid, and what I'm looking is this corner against my grid. So let me just grab it. So there's the grid, and I look to get that corner straight on the grid. So there's my picture, and basically people are thinking, well, you know, that's a bit, oh, well, what's happening here? That's why you leave plenty of room around your building when you're doing the original photography. You don't want it tight up into the corners. So once you've said you're happy with that, I might just go and show you one other thing whilst I'm here. I'll just put this down a bit. Let me just put this back down to the bottom. There we go. A radial filter up here. Let me just I don't like that because it's just frozen and it's just all gone black. Let's just hope it comes back. Can we all see it? Can you just nod your head if you can see it, Jill? Yeah, good. So now we've got the computer that's showing Facebook, but it's it's showing Camera Raw and Photoshop, but it's not. The graphics processor has counted an unrecoverable error due to a runtime error, but I can't get rid of it. Let me just see why it won't go. Come on. I think I'm going to join Mark and have a drink. Well, the actual OK button for the graphics processor at this moment in time won't do anything. So I am stuck in limbo here, which is a bit of a devil because we're just about finished. Let me just see.
It'll ask you to send a report back, Graham, and then you lose it. Then when you reopen it, it'll come back again. I've had this happen loads of times this last week with Photoshop.
It won't even let me shut it down at the moment.
Well, has it asked you if you want to send a report in?
No.
Oh, it asks me that, and you press that, and then you lose it. But as soon as you open Photoshop back up, it just comes back to where you left off. I don't know. It's been a pain in the backside.
Should I kill it? The only thing I can do is kill it.
I've had that as well, and then when I've turned it back on, it's asked me to send a report after I've turned it back on, but it's brought up the one that I was working on, if you see what I mean.
Mine asked me before it goes off. I don't know what's... I actually sent him an email, but of course I never heard from him.
Seems to be doing it a lot recently.
Yes.
Well, I've just tried to shut Photoshop down as well, and it won't close Photoshop down neither.
It freezes it completely.
Yeah.
Could be because there's an awful lot of people at home and they're on Photoshop whereby they would normally be at work. I'm not on about now, but maybe through the daytime.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem to be doing it an awful lot. I've just had to switch off and then report and come back.
Yeah.
Or switch back on, report and carry on.
Yeah, it won't even switch off at the moment, so I've got no choice. So have a 5-minute break. I will stay here and just play with this whilst you all have a comfort break, and I'll be back with you in hopefully 10 when we've all when I've got this going again. Hopefully. On YouTube, I'm going to leave it running, so don't log off. Just wait for it to come back to being. The old task managers coming into being. Adobe Photoshop. End task. That killed it, didn't it? Shut that down again. Minimize that. I'll stop sharing screen for a second whilst we get it up and going again, and hopefully it'll I'll show you the other bit on another picture in a minute actually, because we're doing something else with the radial filter, so no problem. I don't think it's going to open up the pictures. Whoa, look at that, it did, but it took me back a stage or two. So if I'll just get it back to where we was a minute ago so that we can layer, flatten image, filter, camera raw, we're going to go down to geometry. I'm going to say OK to that. Now when I appreciate some people may just have gone off for a few minutes, but I'll carry on with this one so that we can go straight into the next one. So we're at this stage, we've got this great gap at the bottom, so all we do now is just crop out accordingly. So
Graham, do you want to share your screen?
Oh yeah, forgot about that. Thanks for somebody telling me, because of course it would help if you could actually see what I'm doing. So we've got the image here, and basically all I've done is I'm just cropping out of the screen so that I can get a satisfactory image. So that's the end result. And so we've got a building that's now stood up, and because there was 3 images at 10-second exposures, and if I'd done it for 30 seconds I wouldn't have been able to recover the sky. 10 seconds really is close to getting trailing stars anyway, even on a full frame. So although some people say, oh, you can do it for 15 or 20 seconds, you can't. These are still just trailing a little bit. You can just see that tiny little bit of trailing in them, and that's a 10-second exposure. So it does cause problems if you have it too long an exposure. If you want the star trails, of course, that's perfectly fine.
Graham, if you wanted to lighten that sky up, what would you do in terms of putting masks and stuff on there to lighten that up?
Really, if you want to lighten that sky, you need to go back into your camera raw, which is just in the filter camera raw. If you did anything to the image without going into the sky, then without going into the camera raw, it would be global. So all of this would start to lighten as well. If you used masks and you used gradients, etc., these gradient filters, then you don't always get everything. Whereas this area of the building and the ground is quite light. So if we go back to our basic tab, And then we go to the shadows. Because the darker sky is dark, it doesn't affect, as you can see, it doesn't affect the building, but it is affecting the sky. Now, the more light that you introduce to the sky, the more noise that you'll start to introduce again. Don't do it on one tab. So don't do it all on the shadows tab. As you can see, that's brought a little bit in. We can see the cloud just in there now. If we go then to the blacks tab, this will do two things. It will bring the hedges and the bushes up, and because the black's in the sky, it'll also lighten them as well. So it's doing twofold. Now, this night, I didn't bother too much about the sky for the simple reason the cloud was quite heavy across, and I was pointing back towards town. So consequently, that's why it's got a really bright bottom of the image in here. If I now wanted to do, I'll do that radial filter, but if I wanted to do something on the image, say this dark area here, all I'd do is just, oh, I've never had that happen before. Let me just get rid of that one. Never had it go like that before. Well, that's different, isn't it? Has anybody ever seen that before? So at this moment in time, the radial filter doesn't want to work. Let's just go back to there and go back to radial filter again. Let's go up. I can't do that, which it shouldn't make any difference anyway. Nope, never seen that before in my life, but by heck, isn't it fancy? It's a bit like those things we used to have as kids, and you could make all shapes looking down the tube. So I can't show you that one for some reason. This one, let's just see if, for any reason, if we used a gradient filter up the top there, that seems to work. So we could, that always comes up with the last settings that you used on the last one you did. So if we go to the tab for the exposure, it's just doing the top half of the image, as you can see. If we wanted to go a little bit further, if we brought it down and you wanted it, and if you hold the Alt key, by the way, I've just added a second one now. I don't want that second one. Delete. So if we bring this one down, as you can see, it brings the mask down. So if you wanted it to include the roof of the building, you can see when you click on it what it's actually masking, like it did a minute ago with this shadow. And then we can click the exposure, and it's now working right down on the roof as well. If you want it up a bit, we can alter these wherever we want them, and it altered it to the exposure accordingly. I'm going to delete that though. Delete. Let's just try this radial one again, because I don't know why it's not. Nope. The radial filters. Photoshop's done an update today, so they've probably created a problem for themselves again. So, but we'll say OK to that one. We'll come out of it, and as you saw it pop there, we've got a little bit more brightness in the sky accordingly. But I didn't manage to get my radial filter on here from the raw when I opened it in the raw camera raw filter. So right, that's as much as I wanted to do that on that one. Let me just grab my pen and just, that's covered about 3 people's things. So I hope that's helped a little bit. Now, stacking on the other one, Caroline, the only difference that would be is that you take 3 or 4 images of a subject, fairly close-up subject, because you can never get the back and the front to be dead sharp. You do get a bit of tailing off irrespective of how good your f-stop is, etc. You take that 4 images then, say, you put them into the program, you tell it to stack them, and you tell it to stack for sharpness, and it will stack them on top of each other, and it will bring the sharp bits out so that the sharpest bit shows right from back right to front, and it also makes the background go totally soft, well, quite soft. So hope that's helped. What else did I have up there? Done that. Right, sizing of images. I'm just going to do this one. Peter asked about sizing of images. Now, I'm going to show you on here. What am I doing? I'm opening an image. I'm just going to open a random image. I'll just have the old Robin again, just to use him. So we've got an image here. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll just open it. We have an image here which we need resizing. So we go to image size, and it tells us all about the picture here. How many pixels along the top here, how many megabytes it is at the moment. It's 30 megabyte because it was a big image. We've got the size of it at the moment, which is a 12 by 9. So if we want to resize this, the first thing we need to do is to resize and make sure that the resolution, so I'm going to answer 2 questions on this one, Peter. The resolution on Photoshop and Luminar is the DPI, equivalent to the DPI. And to answer the question on your 90D camera, you can't change it on the Canon 90D. There is a few cameras that you can change it on, but not on the 90D. Resolution needs to be 300 here. Normally when you get Photoshop for a start, it sometimes 180, sometimes 200, and you just have to change it up to 300. So that's the first thing you want to make sure, that you're working with all of your images in the same resolution and in the same size proportions. So I work in inches, so I need this 300 resolution to be pixels per inch, right? Now, if I want to reduce this image, I need to change, firstly, the size down to the pixels. And so if I change this size here from inches to pixels, forget that I've left it in inches here, because that has no resemblance now. When Jill wants an image, she says, could we have it at no more than 3,500? So firstly, you do 3,500 in there. That's your longest side. It doesn't matter what the height ends up as. So now that's reduced it from 30 megapixels to 25. So you've gone down a little bit in size already. Change it back to inches and it's 11 by 8. So then we say we want to save this image. So we've done the first thing, which is a 3.5. So we say OK, and the image is just popped down to the smaller size. We then go to File, and I'll tell you what to do in Luminar in a second. We go to File, Save As, and when we go to Save As, I'll put Robin 1 just for this purpose. So you name it now as a title. Do not, as myself, Bob and Jill have said many times before, at this stage do not leave any of your camera numbers here. So don't call it Robin 1 1002465 JPEG. Take everything else off, because it'll put JPEG at the end automatically. So we've got this folder here. I'm going to have it in this folder. That's my title. I say save, and it brings another box up. And now what it's saying, as a compressed file, and this is the size that we're looking for competition sizing, it's saying it's 5.6. Now 5.6 is too much, so we just take the slider down. And by the way, this number here is only visible if you've got preview ticked. So 2.1, I'm sure that Jill would not snap your hand off because you'd left it at 2.1 rather than trying to go down, because if you go down, it goes down a chunk. You try to come back up and it goes back to 2.1. So if it's 2.1 or 2.2, leave it at that. 2 meg is the size that you want. So this number here is only representing how far the slider is quality wise along the slider. We then say OK, and that would save it as an image into that folder. So if we'd got that same image, what you would do is just up here on Lightroom, sorry, on Thingy 4, Luminar 4, thank you. Up here you've got a little box with an arrow going upwards. That's your export button. When you click your export button, and I don't want the system to crash, so I don't want to just open Luminar while I've got this opened. I'll show you it at the end. But click the export button and you've got a box virtually the same as that one there, but it doesn't tell you what size the file is. It just tells you a few other bits. So we'll go through that in a bit at the end. So I'm going to get rid of this one.
Can I just ask a quick question, Graham?
You can.
Does the box that comes up on Luminar show that DPI box?
Yes, it does indeed.
That's the bit I've worked with all the other bits, and I've got it right now. I don't think Jill's refused one for a while now. But I haven't noticed the 300, and that's the bit. Maybe it's done it automatically. I'll check.
Well, even if it says 200, she wouldn't mind because you're only showing it on a screen.
Yes.
So, but the box is there, but it says resolution, not DPI.
Yes. Okay. So, thank you.
That's all right. I'll show you that in the end when I switch Photoshop off, but I don't want to crash one for the sake of the other one.
No.
Right, that's that. That's that. We've done that. Sizing of images. We've put everything preset standard size. So if I'm just going to open that one up again, actually, because Jill asked me to tell you 2 different things there, and I only did one. So if we've got an image open and we want to resize it, now this particular image size is 12.7. So if you wanted to make that 12, and this is a bad example, oh no, it's a good example actually, because it's 12.633. So we know the size of it there. If we want to resize that for a specific reason, oh, I let it go down to that because that's what it was. But if we want to make that a 12 by 8, we would do it up here, 12 by 8 at 300 pixels per inch. And that where the crop is where it would be. Click one simple click inside it and then move your picture to where you want. Now it's a good position to have that branch dead along the bottom. Maybe I'm just clipping its claw, so just go up there, double click, and that's your picture saved at a specific size. Now when you go to print, and this is what I was saying the other week, you go to File, Print, then it'll bring you your print box up, which is on the wrong screen. Can you actually see that on Zoom? The print screen? Yeah, good.
Yes.
I can see it.
I was thinking you might not see the print box. So here we have lots and lots of things. Mine is for the big print printer, so consequently, in fact, what I'll do, I'll change this to the little printer. Printer. So I won't have as many options now. So you've got an orientation always on your printers, but to start with, you need to go. Well, let's just change that to landscape because it's landscape picture anyway. We then need to go into the print settings. You'll all have print settings. This is a Canon printer, so consequently I have lots of different ones. Just use standard printing unless you're going to do it photo printing. It depends which way you do it. I say that simply because you can print standard onto photo paper and it doesn't use as much ink, but it depends upon your individual printer how good a print you get. Once again, here's your landscape setting. Don't click fast speed priority at all ever, because it, in the end, it's always messed my printers up. You then change your media type from plain paper to a photo paper, and then you choose the type or nearest photo paper to your particular paper that you're using. So you will choose one of these, whether it be a matte, a glossy, a super glossy, or whatever. Once you've chosen one of those, you can then choose where the paper comes from, because on all printers you've got a back slot on your printers to drop in a single sheet of paper, or you've got the main feeder paper underneath, which is usually got your normal white paper in for printing text. So choose where it's coming from. If it's automatically select, it will always take the paper underneath. So if you're going to do it rear tray, choose rear tray and just drop a single sheet in at a time. Then you need to go up to main and make sure that you're happy with everything here, because you can do print quality in high or standard. Once again, do not choose fast or custom. Just use standard or high. The reason why, because fast just leaves, if you're not careful, faint lines in the image which a judge will comment on. All the rest of it just leave as it is. If you want grayscale printing and you click grayscale, it will print from the black cartridge only. If you're doing a grayscale image, make sure that you do not click that, that you click the that you change your image in process to a black and white and change the depth of the blacks and the whites to what you want it to be. So do not click grayscale printing, else it will look a bit muddy and horrible. So all of this is whatever you've set on the other page, it will be here. Page setup, you can then choose depending upon your printer whether you want A4 or A3. So just drop it down and you've got loads of paper sizes, etc, etc. If it won't allow that size, then it will shoot up and say you can't have this because your printer's only an A4 printer. So landscape is once again there. If you want to do borderless printing, you can do borderless printing. All of that, that's all of that. You don't want effects and you don't want maintenance. Maintenance is just to do cleaning, etc, etc. So once we've made our adjustments here, you choose OK and you've got your image ready for printing. When you click print, it will shoot it off to print. It's not showing a print button for the simple reason printer's not switched on at the moment. So that's that. Now to jump back a stage, if that image doesn't fit to your liking on the page, you can create a new page to put it on. So you can create a page always in your program and you can drop that image onto the size of paper that you're using. So usually there's various ones here. There's an A4 there. So if I was to choose an A4 and then I can just go to image, rotate, wherever rotate is, 90 clockwise. I've now got it that way, put it onto there. I've now got that onto there. Then all you've got to do is drag and drop that onto that sheet of paper, and it'll give you a size according to your paper, so that you can position it wherever you want. So that and it's as simple as doing what I'm doing, but you want to hold, I can't remember whether it's shift or alt, shift I think, drag it across, let go, and that's dropped it in the middle. If you hold shift, it'll drop it in the middle of the page. Now that looks like it's probably cropping a little bit because it's 12 and an A4 sheet is only 11 3/4 basically. So it will crop a bit off the ends. So just be aware of your sizes, etc, etc. Just shut that down. Right, we've got a picture here from Mark, which is a night scene in Lincoln. And funnily enough, it's got the radial filters in that I was playing with this afternoon, which I'm going to have to delete because the radial filter thing isn't working. So this is one more there. So this is an image which Mark sent in. That's got rid of them, and Mark's basically said what's happened, why has it happened, etc, etc. In fact, what he did actually say, he didn't say that at all. He said several images have flare from the street lights. Now that one, to answer that question, is possibly because you've got a protector filter on the front of your lens. Where's Mark? I'm just looking for him. Oh, there you go, Mark. Yeah. Do you have a protector filter on the front of your lens, Mark?
Yeah, I think there was a UV filter on the front.
Yeah. So consequently, with having that UV filter on, the lights are bouncing through the first element of the UV filter into the main element of the front of the lens, bouncing back to the UV filter and then going back inside the lens and reverberating until you've got all of these marks in on the picture. So certainly for night photography where you've got bright lights, you just want to take your filter off, and it will alleviate that a little bit. But because you've got such bright lights here, you do have a problem with some flare anyway. Image wise, let me just open it. The image, in all honesty, is beyond recovery. You can't really do much to it. I'm just going to put it back into camera raw, because one thing you did ask was about the colouring. Now on all programs, whether it be up here in the filter section, the image section somewhere, you've got a white balance dropper. Once you pick that white balance dropper up, it will give you on one click a different colour by trying to the program tries to put it to the colour that it believes to be correct for the choice that you've chosen, the area that should be a white. So you want to choose a white with a bit of colouring on it of the yellowing, and one click and it just gets rid of that massive orange. Now if you wasn't happy with that, just take the dropper again, look for another area that you can see the orange on. That's, you know, this is quite white at the bottom. Just click it again and it's gone again. So that's a quick way of getting the colour to a more normal as your eye saw it. If you're not happy with that, the temperature sliders, all programs have a temperature slider, and the more blue you put into it is opposite to red. So it'll take away, when I grab hold of it, it will take away and add more blue in it. But you've got to be very careful with some images, like it is doing. It's showing the sky up terrible. So usually by using the dropper, you can get a fairly good result. So I'll just open it again. So what would you do? This is a prime example where you would use the multi-image stacking method. So you would take an image that you forget all about, all of this ground and the rest, the walls and everything else, and the first image that you focus for is for the lights. So you would get the brightest part of the image so that it's just bright enough for you and what you're happy with. You would then do another exposure, one stop below that. In fact, I should have gone the other way. Below that. Then you should do another stop above that. And if you want more than 3 images, then you do another one, 2 stops under and 2 stops over. And that's when you would bring them all into Photoshop and you would stack them together, and you would get an image where you wouldn't have this bright massive light. If you did, you could rub the brightest ones out and get rid of that bright area, and then you would have a perfect image brightness wise. Now the other thing that I used to do in the very early 90s was on a bit of a stick. this is going back to my days of doing something very basic, and I can't see any bit of stick at the moment, but piece of stick about a foot long, and on the end of it you put a circular piece of card, and as you take your image you put it in front of the camera and you put it over where the light is, watching it on live view, and you just move this about so that it's going over the light area, so you're stopping that light coming into your camera. You would then do the same with the other light down the street, and by the time you've finished you haven't let as much light in from those bright lights as you do normally, only by just holding it in front of the lens. A very crude way of doing it, but it used to work before we had the possibility to do stacking. But to answer your question, original question, the images are really just a bit beyond being able to recover, so unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry about that. It didn't help really, did it? But
well, yes, it has helped, yeah.
Good. Right, we've done that one. We've done that. Right, we've got Bob's to do, so nice easy one to finish with. Bob's got 2 images that he wants to put into the same image. Now I'm not going to change the images because I don't want to change the actual images from what Bob took. So the first thing you do, you check the image size of the first one and we choose a size. So we say, right, what we'll do, we'll choose 10. So it's 10:6:105. We go to the other one, image size 10. I forgot what it was now.
105.
10:105. Image size 10. Was it 6:105?
6:105.
Very, very close then, isn't it? So we'll not worry on this occasion, but you make them both the same size. And if you wanted to, you would crop it accordingly with the crop here to make them exactly the same size. So we now know that these 2 images are 10 by 6 basically. So we make an assumption of what size we want the piece of paper to be that we put these two images on. So we've got 6 images high in both images, so that's 12. We'll have an inch in between them and an inch at the top and an inch at the bottom. So we've got 12, 13, 14, 15. The image is 10. We'll have an inch at the side. So we're going to have an end result of 12 by 15. So we forget what we've got here and we go to File, New. Now you can make a new size by going up to here and creating it in 300 pixel resolution. But all I ever do is just pick one, go up to Image, Canvas Size, and it's come up on the wrong screen, Canvas Size, and now we make the height to 15, and we make the width to, what was the width? It was 8 inches. It'll say that, so we proceed. We then have to have this docking to be able to drag the image out. We drag the image out, we hold Alt, and we drag it. No, we don't hold Alt. That's a load. I've just told you a load of lies. Let me just move that, go back to that one, get rid of my layer there. So we hold Shift, drag and drop. And my first image wasn't the right size, so let me just check that canvas size again. Image size.
Should be 10.
Oh, it should be 10, shouldn't it? Yeah, of course it should. Got to go to canvas though. Image, canvas, 10. Okay. In fact, if it's 10 to start with, it's got to be 12, hasn't it?
Yeah, you said 12 before.
I did, didn't I? So 12. Good reason why it don't fit, innit? So we hold Shift, we drag the picture and drop it, and it is now dead in the center. So we've now got the purple line which always comes up. Drag it to where you think it is, minimize that one, drag the other one out, and get Shift, drag and drop. It's dead in the middle as well, so take it down to the bottom. 6 and 6 is 12. I did 15i, so I shouldn't have done. So let's just go back to canvas size. Forget this bit, it's just me getting me measurements wrong. I put 18 instead of 15 for some stupid reason. 15. Now I want it to be one way or t'other. In fact, I'll do it the other way. Okay, proceed, and now we've got the two images somewhere in the middle. Get rid of that image because we've finished with it. So now if we go up to View, Show, Grid, and we zoom into the top one, I have mine into 5 segments and in inches. So make sure that you're working on the right layer on the right hand side. So this is the top image, that's the top one there. Just get hold of it, drag it down, and you can zoom right in if you want to. But I've also, within my selections up here, got snap to guides, so it will always go into where I want it to go. So whoops, go down to the bottom one, choose the top layer, choose the bottom layer, which is layer 2 up here, and we want it an inch off the bottom, so just move it up. Now that one's not going, it's gone to near enough anyway. So we've got 2 images now. We don't want all of these lines showing any longer, so we go down to our View, Show, and click the grid off. Looks a bit bland like that though, so if you remember back at the beginning if we look at this grey area, and we're looking at the bottom image, even though it's the top layer, it's the bottom image. If you double click in the grey, brings this box up. I'll move it out of the way so you can see what's happening to this bottom one. On here, there's drop shadow. So if we put a drop shadow on it, it always goes to 12 o'clock here. But you've got to double click this, by the way. If you just single click it, you don't get this box up. Put that to about 10 o'clock and you can see this drop shadow down the side now. Okay, so we go to stroke and I'll show you what happens if you just click it once. It goes to, in fact I clicked a good one there, so it's come up, but sometimes it doesn't show what you're wanting to do. So set that to 5 pixels. Choose what colour you want just by double clicking in that box. I want black, so usually for black I just go into a bottom corner. 5 pixels. Now I want this to be on the outside, so you can now see that faint line which just makes it stand out from the background. So I say OK. Now there's 2 things you can do here. If you had a multiple selection of images, some images I've done for people on sheets 36 inches wide by 24 inches, and there's probably, I don't know, 20 or 30 pictures in them. So I don't want to be doing what I've done, just clicking that. So what you can do is you double click it again. No, you don't. It's a long time since I've done it. You right click it and you say copy layer style, because the bottom picture is the layer. So if you copy layer style, and then if you had 5 or 6 of these other layers, you'd select them all, right click, paste layer style, and it pops in and the job's done. So it's very, very easy. You are watching all of this, aren't you, Bob? So the only thing I would do with this particular image is this bit here. I would just go like that and get rid of that, so that we've got rid of that little bit of writing at the bottom, so that it doesn't show. Now you might want this line here, just, I don't know, I can't remember what it was like, but it may just want copying down. But that's the end result, and you would now look at the size again, and what you're looking at now is the external of the white sheet. So you have now got a sheet of paper 15 by 12 which will go onto your A3 piece of paper. If you wanted that to fit the A3 piece of paper, does anybody know what A3 paper size is in English? No. Whatever size it is, say
it's 11.7 by 16.5.
So it's, if I do 16 there, 16, so that would show the extremity of it. So you'd say that, and that's just popped to the size of your paper now. Because that's, even though we've still got 3 separate layers here, it does act as one here. So you would just make sure that is the same size as your piece of paper that you're printing on. So I'll help you with this again, Bob, so that you can do it. I've already done one for you anyway, so in fact I did it the other way round. So, but now you've got everything done. If you wanted to add a final thing to it, the only final thing that I may say that you'd probably want is to do a bit of text. And what you could do, you could drag a text box out here, dead in the middle, get rid of the, whatever they call it, I've forgotten what they call it, and you could put limber, new and old, or whatever you want. Just bring it down so that you get it somewhere in the middle, swipe it, type in 200, whatever you want it to be, and then you've got it up there. Yes, somebody else has put 16.5 by 11.7. So that's your size. If you want it a bit bigger, go up again, do it. In fact, it didn't stick last time, so let me just do that. There you go. Limber, new and old. Put it in the centre somewhere. You know it's in the centre of the page because you pulled your text box out just from side to side of the picture. Now, once again, you've created a new layer here. So should you want, double click in the grey area, not on the title, and you get this up again. Now, if you wanted a drop shadow on your text, you can put a drop shadow on your text. You can bring it down. You can bring the distance down just to make it stand out a little bit more. And it just gives it that little bit of an outline to it. If you didn't like a drop shadow, you could bevel and emboss it. And let me just show you what that's done. That's now put a bevel and emboss, and you can change those settings up here as well. So you could put a title in the middle if you wanted to, or you just forget it and you bin that layer accordingly. Whoops, didn't want to go. It's gone. Does that answer your question, Bob? Yep, good.
Can I ask another one then on those two photos, please, Graham?
Yeah.
If you wanted, sometimes you see those sorts of photos and you see sort of the old appearing out of the new, or the new appearing out of the old, just in one single image. How would you go about that?
What, when there's sort of half the picture old, half of the picture new?
Yeah, you've got it.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you extremely simply on here, because I don't want to make it too hard. You get the move tool. So I didn't expect to be moving that one. So if you wanted the two, and forget that one's hidden behind the other at the moment, but if you wanted the two and you wanted to see where they were, you choose the right layer, which is the top layer. You take the opacity down so that it starts to show you the layer underneath. Now, depending what you can just see the two new layers now. Now, depending what you want from the end result, you may want the shop to be the element that is equivalently the same. So you choose the layer that you want to move, and although I'm putting my mouse on the top layer, because I've chosen the bottom layer, it's going to move the bottom layer. So you can get that shop, and as you can see, the shop is moving over to there. So we'll just assume that's about it at the moment. So then all we do, and you wouldn't have it on this white background, of course, then all we do is just get the eraser and we choose an opacity of what we want the opacity to be. So initially, this area on the left hand side and around the edge, we don't want to see that. So if we choose the right layer, if we choose that layer there, I've got the stamp tool, eraser, going to make it a bit smaller, and we can start to erase that out. And this is very rough, of course. If we then take the opacity down, well, let's do a join first. Let's do a join. I don't know where to do the join really. Let's say we want to keep them people in it. Do we want the kids in it? Let's just take a bit more of it off. Now the black line, you wouldn't have that, of course, because it's taking that black line around the edge with it. So we now take the opacity down to a lesser opacity, and you can now start taking it back until you're really happy with the way that the two match up. So you'd have to play with it really gently to get it back. Then when we've finished, we put the opacity back up on the top image. Oh, I can't do it on this back sheet because I've got a background and it's going to lock them together. I should have had 2 layers to show you this, and then I would blend the 2 layers by using one of the methods to blend the 2 together. Are you with that, Paul? It's a bad example to do it because I'm doing it fairly quick, but that's how they do it. They're rubbing part of the image out and they're leaving part of the original image in until they get a line where they want a line.
Okay.
But you would have it you would have it blended a lot better than it is at the moment, and you would spend a lot more time on it. So but just choose a blend that works. All of these are blending modes, so you just choose one that would work best. And when you're doing a couple of images, it's usually darken or multiply, but on this occasion darken working best. But of course at the top there I just made a rough selection. That would normally be 2 straight lines. So okay,
that's a good one for a full lesson one night.
What's that? The blending one?
Well, both of them for that matter, but yeah.
I think with something like that, rather than doing it on a club night like we are tonight in a general photo, we would do it on a night for anybody who's got Photoshop, so that it wouldn't bore the other people, if you know what I mean.
Fair enough.
So, right, the last one I've got is once again with blending modes, stacking and layers, and I've got 2 images here which I'm just going to bring in. So we've got 2 images, and the sheep one is absolutely crap because it's off my phone. The other one is courtesy of Keith, so thanks very much for that. So initially we want to blend, once again, a little bit like Paul's just said a minute ago, we want to blend 2 things together. So what we're going to do is, this is going to be the one that I'm going to use as what we would call the background layer, and this is the one that we're going to use to put the head and neck of the giraffe I had to think what it was for a minute, the giraffe, on the image. So we choose the method that we want to select with, which is the lasso tool. So this is going to be a very, very rough selection. We're going to go down to there because we can sort it out afterwards. So once again, like I said earlier, I'll show you it this way this time. I've made a selection, so what it's done, I can either go, if you remember, to layer, new, and at the bottom there via copy, and it'll do a copy layer off that one on top. But on this occasion, because I want to do it quick, you just grab what you've selected, drag it over and drop it, close the giraffe down, and you look where this would be best to fit. Now for a start, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to tidy it up a little bit, get me a eraser tool, make it smaller, go to the right layer and eraser tool. Oh, I know why it's not doing anything, it's only on 13%. 100%, rub out a bit of the background. In fact, what I could do is, because I've got the background, the top layer selected, I could go once again to this here, and I could get it to select just the giraffe itself. So if it hasn't selected everything that you want, you can just go over it with another little box and it helps to select it. I'm not going to do that tremendously. If you click this little tool down the bottom here, this puts a mask on and it shows you what's selected and what isn't, so you can see accordingly what to rub out and what not. It just helps you make the selection. I want to make his select inverse. I want to just get my eraser again, make it a bit smaller, and I always do this the wrong way for a start. Yeah, I have done. So if you do something wrong, as I've said, I'm no expert. Select inverse. So this time, whichever way I go, no, I've gone wrong again. Let me think about this. I want to rub out the red. That's better. Let's leave him a nose like that. That'll do. Ear, bit of ear there. A bit of ear there. Make it smaller. This up the side here, we can, in fact, what I could do is switch that mask off. Another one that you can do is, my brain's going 10 to the dozen now because I can't think what the hell I'm doing. Select. Oh, I know what we're doing. Select and mask. Now that we've got this up, I want to make that a bit lighter for a start. I don't want it that colour. If we go up to the second tool down, it'll select. If we go around the edges, it'll begin to select the edges much better. So up this back, it'll begin to select the fur when the computer catches up with it. I better not do too much, or else I'll make it crash again. Come on. So we'll just assume that I've made a good selection around all of the animal, and as you can see, I'm beginning to get the fur. Let me make a bit bigger brush. I don't want to overdo it really. So let's just assume that's okay, and we say okay. We've now got a selection around it, so that what I can do now is just get that eraser, and if I do this the wrong way, yeah, that's the wrong way, so select inverse. So now, because I've got the marching ants around it, I can just swipe over anywhere and it doesn't rub the giraffe's neck out. Okay, so we've got a bit of a idea. I'm not going to worry about anymore, so I'm going to say select, deselect. There is, of course, shortcut keys for all of these, but I don't know them. Make the picture a little bit smaller, move it up. Now all we need to do is to get a good position for A to fit to B. So we'll say there, and then what we need to do is to go to the layers palette. We need to get rid of the head, So initially we will just choose this, and we're going to clone on this occasion. Clone tool. We're going to clone some grass across. When you're cloning, you're supposed to do it with not 100%. You're supposed to do it in multiples until you get it right, but I'm going to do it in 100%. So press Alt, click once, and just start painting some grass across from various positions until, let's choose a bit from there. I can't paint over the giraffe because the giraffe is a separate layer. Now this side here, I've got a bit of rubbish on there, so I'm just going to make this a bit smaller. I'm going to choose that, and I'm just going to paint a bit of grass. It's not, I can't paint it over the top of that one at the moment, so we'll just forget that one on this occasion. So let me just get the move tool, because we've now got the head of the wrong layer. You can't move something that's not there, Graham. So let's just move this back to, come on, move, thank you. That'll do. Go back to the background layer, clone a little bit more across because I can now see I've got some here. Get a bit of grass. That's got rid of that. So now we need to blend the two together. So if I'm happy with where that is, all I do is go to Layer, Flatten Layer. Now that's one picture now. As you can see, all I've got is a background copy. So then we take our opacity down to probably about 50% for a start. We get our clone tool, we put it on the sheep's fur, Alt, click, and we just start to gently paint accordingly into, just want to do a bit of 100% there because I've got a bit of a gap. So I'm going to take a bit from here. That just makes it blend a little bit better. Take that back down now to 25%, somewhere there. Take some more wool. In fact, I'm going to take it down to probably about 12 because we're not far off now. We just, as you can see, when you put your cursor over it, it looks like you're doing a lot, but it doesn't in actual fact do a lot. You're just painting a little bit in accordingly. Now in your own mind, just forget about this bit up the back of its neck, and there's your end result. So you've got a nice blend between the two, and that was using layers to start with and then blending afterwards with the clone tool, but only at the end there I was down to 10%. So there's a picture for you, Keith, as you've never seen a giraffe before. Is there any questions?
What are you going to call it?
Ah, right. Well, I've got another example here that I did earlier. I shall just bring this one up. And this one is finished. And it's called Finished. What did I call it? Sheeperash. I wanted to get the giraffe in, but I didn't know what to call it. So it's a sheeperash. So there's two. One I did earlier, one I did now. And funnily enough, they don't look a damn sight different, do they? In fact, I like the one I've just done now because I chopped more of this tree off. So just one to show you for Caroline's sake when she was saying about using stacking methods and also its blending. The first lockdown we had, I'm just going to close these two down.
Graham?
Yeah?
Just had a question on YouTube. Is there a limit? Is there a limit on the amount of layers?
How many fingers have you got multiplied by 100?
Marvellous.
No, there's no limit. The problem is the limit does come into effect on the power of your machine, because when you get, that particular layer there is 17 meg. I've been working with images where I've told you earlier where I've been putting them all on one sheet, and when I'm putting them all on one sheet I can get up to about a gigabyte of data in Photoshop there. Now if I go much more above a gigabyte, the old machine's beginning to shout a little bit and get hot under the collar. So yes, there is a limit, but no limit to what I think an amateur photographer would use. You could add birds into that in the background, you could add a lion in, you could add no end of things in there. 20 layers, and it is literally by what your machine will take. So yeah, it is. So thanks for that, Nick Cam. Caroline, when we started lockdown, it won't show if I don't do it on Photoshop, I decided to do an image that you may have seen before, but I set the camera up in the corner on a tripod, and every single image was taken with exactly the same exposures, and then I did all of the poses individually, and then I put them all in together, merged them together, layered them together, and where I have positions such as this foot touching the trousers on that one, you just have to rub a little bit out. Likewise on this side on the layer, I had to overlay the layer that had this standing shot in to put it over the top of the arm. And there was another one somewhere, I thought I'd got something else overlaid. I can't remember. It's a good job I didn't have all in my sock, wasn't it? I've got a good pair of socks on that day, look. But then you have to do the poses of sort of being reactive. So, you know, I thought one on the phone, one having a drink, a couple talking to each other, and one on the computer. And I must admit, since all of this, the fireplace is gone, the carpet's been changed, we've got new wallpaper and new everything. So most expensive bloody room change I've ever done. So yeah, that's how you would do a multiple image, stacking it together and then erase bits, etc, etc. So I'm 2 minutes late. Anybody got any questions?
Yeah. I know you were just saying about obviously the power of the computer, it depends on how many layers you can do, but is there anything to stop you doing, say, 5 layers, then saving that photo and then starting again with that new photo and then adding more layers to it? Could you do it that way?
Infinite.
Yeah.
Yeah, infinite. You could, like this one, if I wanted to, well, I wouldn't know where to stand the camera. But if I wanted to add new backgrounds to it, I could take another picture and overlay it on top of all of those and use a blending mode to add it all to it. So, but yeah, it's endless. You can keep going and going. If your machine only allowed you to do 10 layers at a time, because 10 layers were equivalent to, say, a couple of 100 meg, then you could save all of that work, start again, add to it. So it is, to be quite honest, it's endless. And I know very little about the job, so it is. I mean, you've seen the amount I've used out of all of these things up here tonight and all of these down here. If you get using all of them lot, you've got a much bigger brain than I have. So, but yeah.
Can I just ask something, Graham, please?
You can.
When you say overlay, is that a blending mode or what?
No, I think it's a phrase I'm using, Jim, to be honest.
Right.
I'm just basically, I'm using a layer that's laid on top of another layer, and I'm just calling it an overlay, but it's not an overlay. It is a layer on top of another layer.
Right, thank you.
So I don't think you can't use, as you can see, you can't use the blending modes on one layer. You have to have at least 2 layers open to use a blending mode. But there is one in there that's called, let me just drag in another layer. You'll probably have noticed this evening I've not gone to open a layer. I never go to File, Open, and then find the file. I just have where my pictures are open, and I literally left click it and drag it and drop it. Now there's 2 ways of doing that. If you want to do that overlay, I'll show you how to do that in a second, but what you have to do, let me just close this one down. What you have to do is drag it and drop it onto that grey line just there where they lay. If you drop it here, it will be an overlay. If you drop it there, it'll be an image. So if I drop it there, that image is now overlaid on top of that image. So as you can see, it's become an overlay on the top. So if I wanted to blend, let me just show you something totally different here. So if I took Bob's 2 images and took them on here, so select both images, open both images. In fact, I shouldn't have opened both images together, so let me just close that one down, drag and drop that one on top, click. We've now got 2 images spot on top of the other. Now you can arrange the way that these layers are. If you pull the top one down to the bottom one, now it doesn't like doing it for some reason. Oh, it's done it. It was a bit slow. So that's I've just, sorry, I was looking at YouTube. So that's now put the top one on. Now if I wanted to blend them 2 together, in fact what it's done, it's created another copy. So let me just delete that one. Just drag it and chuck it in there. So I'm back to my 2 layers now. In fact, I think I deleted the wrong one, but never mind. They're both there. So what I can do is choose a layer, which I'll choose the top layer, get the opacity, move it down just until you can see the 2. And what I could do now, if I wanted, if I get the move tool, select the layer that you want to move, and I could put that shop dead over the top of that, and then you would begin to be getting one old picture fading into the new picture. And when you go to the opacity, you can then change the opacity down of, say, the background copy to, oops, I've got to change the name first. to change the opacity down of the other copy, because you can't do changes to an image that says background copy. You have to change it to layer 1 or a name. So, and then you can blend them two in, and then you've got an image that will show the background of the new ones and the foreground. So I forgot the question now. Oh, overlay. That's an overlay.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
but what Paul was asking earlier on, that looked an easier way than what you did earlier.
it is, because now if you choose a background layer, say what's the bottom layer is layer O. So even though I can see the top layer there, if I get the eraser and start to erase, it looks terrible, but the other layer, I've got to make it bigger. So if I decided I wanted it somewhere in the middle there, now, because although it looks terrible now, when I put both layers up to 100%, whoops, don't double click, Graham, 91, 100%, so that's brought the colour one in if it was in the right place and I'd blended it right, and then go to the other layer and bring in that opacity of that layer to 100% as well. The wrong one's on the top, so you have to work right, but that one should have been, I don't think I can drag it and drop it. Oh, I can. So if I'd got the opacity of this one to 100% and then I feathered this edge, that's how you would get your picture of the two, like you've just said, Bob.
Thank you.
So okie dokie. Well, that's thanks for staying with us this evening. We are 10 minutes late, but I hope that I haven't blown your mind totally, but when you think that what I've done this evening is a very simplistic form to these people who do it for a living, then it is very, very complex. I'm just going to show Peter what I said I'd show him because I've forgotten. Luminar 4. That'll just open. So yeah, it's
Graham, have you stopped sharing?
I have for a minute until I'm waiting for a program to open.
Okay.
It's just opening, but I can't share it until it's opened. So I shall be with you in a second when Luminar opens. Luminar did an update today, by the way, for anybody who... I'm just reading the comment on... thank you for answering that one, Neil. I wouldn't have known what the hell to have said. So if I add an image, edit a single image, let's just choose any image from what we've been having tonight. Toshiba. Let's just choose one of Keith's. I hope he doesn't mind. So here's a picture of this zebra. So for yourself, Peter, you've got this image here. So all you do is click on this box.
You need to share, mate.
Oh yeah, forgot to share. It would help. That helps, doesn't it? You can see that now, can't you?
Yeah.
Yep, good. So you go up to this square box here, click that, export to image, and here's your box that you've got where everything's in it. So you would never leave that file name in there. You would just name it whatever you wanted, zebra. you would change the format to whether you want it in TIFF or JPEG. TIFF is the better of the two if you're going to keep coming backwards and forwards to the image to do something on it, but it's a little bit harder to work with. So save it as a JPEG for our competitions. You mustn't save it as a TIFF for our competitions. It needs to be a JPEG. So you change JPEG to that. Sharpness, you always put none because you should have done the picture as best you wanted it at the time. Resize, actual size, but then you leave it in to your choice to change this. So if that said size wise there 5,000 pixels, you would swipe that side there and you would change it to 3.5 accordingly. To actual size, you've got to change it to the longest edge. So 3.500, and it'll now go to the longest side, which is the top side, the landscape side. So when you save it, it'll save it at 3.5. There's your 240 resolution. You would change that to 300 pixels per inch. Now this is where you have to start doing a little bit of guesstimating. So once you've done this a time or two, you will get used to where to save it, whether it be 75% or 50%. But if you export that for a start, it'll go back into that folder where it was. And if I open that folder ready, once it's saved it, and Graham's frantically looking where it sent it because he never looked. So export to image, it's gone into pictures. So get rid of that. Go to pictures. So now if you can see this picture, can you see my folder there with all the pictures in it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Now you can see that that's only 690 KB. So it's a 3,500 image. I was just about to point to that. It's 3,500 pixels by 2333, but it's only 692. So what you would do, and I don't want to do that, you would export it again, export to image, and this time when you, whoops, bugger, cancel, excuse my French, you would export it and you would put that up to 100% this time, export it, and you would replace the one that you'd already got. Then when you look at it, that image now hasn't hardly gone up, 692. So
yeah, that's because it was under that Facebook compression because we sent it by Facebook.
Yeah, you would have had a higher resolution image to start with. But
yeah,
that's
it's 20.
how you do it.
It's about 21 meg, that one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's how you would do it, Peter, in Luminar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Any quick questions before we go? My voice is going.
I've run out of notebook now.
So we can ring you up, can we, Avril, when we want to know all about it?
Right.
110.
Thank you very much, everybody on YouTube, for watching this evening. We got up to 9 people at one time, so thank you very much indeed for watching. I'm going to end the stream now, so I will leave this one on for a bit. So good night to everyone on YouTube. Good night.
Thanks, Graham.
I don't want to wave, you never can see me.
Yes, thank you.